The story begins as we see a gate being opened, with two women watching on in terror. Standing in front of the gate, we meet Zon. The gate opens and a mythical beast known as the Kirin steps out. The Kirin asks why he opened the gate, and Zon says he is there to take its power to heal his sick mother. His arms burst into flames and he attacks. He lands a devastating blow on the beast's head, but to no avail. He is quickly overwhelmed by the beast's speed and he is sent flying. He holds his arm as it appears broken, but he smiles, activating his Phoenix Burst ability. His arm is restored as he attacks once more. He throws a large stone pillar at the beast, but the Kirin shatters it with ease, pushing Zon back once more. Suddenly, there is an eruption of ice from the ground, and both Zon and the Kirin are frozen. We meet Shen, the axis of ice, followed by the other elemental axis, earth, wood, and metal. At this moment, we see a baby Kirin emerging from the gate and running off. The Kirin breaks free from the ice while dodging an attack from the metal axis. It transforms into a more demonic form and attacks Zon once again. Zon barely manages to defend himself, and after their clash, he is left heavily wounded. The beast kidnaps the two women, and Shen tries to stop him, but his attacks are blocked with one hand and he is blown away. The Kirin states that the demon realm is now in chaos, and that they must find his son in order to save the two women. 3 years later, we see a village in the mountains, where we meet a young girl named Sue. She returns home after collecting herbs, and she greets an old lady as she stops for water. We're introduced to the 6th and 7th elders of the village. They talk about how they've been feeling healthier thanks to the village's special elixir. They greet Sue as she runs by, and Sue arrives at the pharmacy, handing over the herbs to the 5th elder. After that, she rushes to find her father, but ends up running right into him, causing him to smash his pot of medicine. Her father is the 3rd elder-in-chief of the village. He cleans up the broken pieces, telling her she needs to be more careful. He hands her some money, and tells her to buy a replacement pot from the old master up in the mountains, but he warns her to stay on the path so she doesn't get lost, and Sue sets off right away. Along the way, she meets 3 shady-looking masked men. As they approach her, she gets nervous and tries to hide her money. They tell her they are travelers looking for the village, wanting a place to rest. She nervously gives them directions to the village and they head off, but Sue is scared by this encounter and quickly runs off. However, she trips and ends up rolling down the hill. She comes to a stop and realizes that she is now lost. As she gets up, she finds herself in front of a large warning that reads, "The Spirit Fog Hill." Sue looks on as the words begin to glow. A wing brushes against her leg, causing her to scream. She instantly grabs the creature and throws it away. But she realizes it was just a duck, so she goes after it. She comes to a lake and discovers a naked Zon. Sue gets flustered at the sight and ends up slipping. Zon sees her falling and quickly jumps up, but he flies right past her as he saves the duck. Sue can't believe this and falls into the water. Zon and Sue get acquainted. He wonders why she's out in the middle of nowhere, and she tells him she's looking for the old master to get a replacement pot. Zon knows the man, so he offers to guide her. As the two of them make their way, Sue asks Zon why there was a warning about entering the Fog Hill. Zon explains an old legend. Long ago there were demons that lived in the Fog Hills. They ravaged the humans, hunting and eating them, but one day the 5 elemental axes appeared, and together they pushed the demons back and sealed them away. There were some that managed to get away, so the axes now serve to maintain balance and keep the peace. The pair arrive at the old master's house, and Sue is shocked by the overwhelming stench of alcohol. She admires all the pots and creations on display. The old master emerges from under a mountain of wine. Sue tells him she's there to pick up a new pot and hands him the money. The master tells Zon to grab the order, so he brings it over and the two leave. The sun is going down, so Zon decides to escort Sue back. At the village, the elders are alerted as they hear the town bell ringing. At the gates, the 3 masked men from earlier are attacking. 2 of the guards are already dead with 1 wounded, begging for help. As one of the masked men runs up, the 6th elder appears. Wielding his dual blades, he exchanges blows with the man, but he is quickly overpowered, getting kicked away and stabbed with his own blade. The 5th elder jumps down and joins the fight. He charges in with his spear and holds his ground, showing he is more skilled than the sixth elder, and he even manages to land a hit on the man. But with this, the second man joins the fight. The two men launch an attack together, throwing their blades while charging at the fifth elder. The fifth elder blocks the two blades, but ends up being stabbed by their abnormal arms. The seventh elder tries to help out by firing explosives, but the fifth elder also gets blown away as he coughs blood. The seventh elder continues to fire, but one of the men deflects an explosive right back at him, causing him to suffer a heavy injury. One of the men rushes to finish off the fifth elder, but just before he can strike, Zahn appears and holds him back. In an instant, Zahn is on top of one of the men and has the other caught with his hand. A bird's face is revealed as his mask falls off. Zahn activates his flame and incinerates the beast. The elders and Sue are shocked to see Zahn, and they recognize him as the Flame Axis from the legends. Elsewhere, we meet a young boy named Dan as he chases away a bunch of other kids that are stealing his food. The kids get away as Dan curses at them, but he suddenly sees his brother Quinn, who has just returned from a long trip. Dan is overjoyed, hugging his brother, and the two share a moment as his brother gives him a gift of his favorite red fruit. But this moment doesn't last long, as they notice the disturbance coming from the village gate, so they hurry over to see what's happening. At the gate, the chief orders everyone to retreat and regroup. They help the wounded back inside and decide to leave the rest to Zahn. The masked man undergoes a transformation, with feathers emerging, revealing his true form to be a peacock. The two begin to fight, and at first appear to be evenly matched in both speed and power, but the peacock dives at Zahn and uses a breath attack, causing him to be blown away. The peacock follows up with a flurry of blows, which Zahn is barely able to avoid. Zahn stops his attack, activating his flames, and he blasts the peacock away. He then uses his flames to boost his speed and he delivers a ferocious blow. The peacock gets blasted off, and it ends up running away. The elders regroup with the other villagers, who are in shock seeing their injuries. Quinn tries to treat the fifth elder's wounds, and the chief tries to calm the villagers down. He tells them they were attacked by demons and need to prepare weapons. But the peacock suddenly lands behind him, and the chief is paralyzed in fear. The peacock detects a particular scent on him, and it asks him for a certain location. The chief panics and doesn't know what he's talking about, but Zahn flies in, kicking the peacock away. He pins the peacock down, but it charges its breath attack at the villagers. Zahn blocks the blast but leaves himself open from behind, allowing the peacock to swoop in and slash his arm and leg. With this injury, the peacock asks Zahn if he's aware of what the humans have done. The peacock spreads his feathers and begins to glow, as he says he will show Zahn their true nature. As the villagers stare at the peacock's feathers, some of them start screaming as they begin to turn purple. Even the sixth elder is affected and he begins to transform. The peacock absorbs those who transformed, turning them into dust. After it absorbs their essence, it undergoes its own transformation. It gains a new humanoid appearance and takes a moment to reflect on its new form. It reads the mind of the old lady and discovers the location of the thing it's looking for. It takes off, leaving Zahn on the ground, who is healing his wounds. Zahn's hair turns to flames and his power surges as he puts on a mask, quickly chasing after the demon. The sixth elder remains and runs wild, fully transformed into a demon. He kills other members of the village and even attacks his own son. But Quinn suddenly dives and saves the kid. The sixth elder corners them and he stabs them with his claws. Dan is horrified at the sight, and he rushes to save his brother. He jumps forward and strikes with a stick, but he ends up getting skewered instead. The sixth elder realizes what he's done and asks Quinn to kill him before he can do any more harm. Zahn catches up with the demon and their battle continues. He begins to struggle fighting against the demon's new form. The demon attaches its aura to him, pulling him back in after each hit. Zahn grabs onto the demon, but this only leads to him getting blasted up the mountain. When the dust clears, Zahn is revealed relatively unharmed and appears to have ascended to an even more powerful form, with his body completely glowing with flames. Zahn's speed and strength are massively enhanced as he chases the demon. He uses his flame whips to catch it, and he kicks it into a mountain. The demon retaliates using its feathers to attack. It gathers all its feathers together to create a massive drill-like attack. Zahn attempts to stop it, but it pushes him back. As the tip of the attack begins to cut his throat, he reaches deep within his power and rips the attack in half. He flies toward the demon, striking it in the chest and causing its heart to combust. He attacks with a mad barrage of strikes, before smashing the demon into the ground. As the dust settles, the demon has reverted back to its peacock form. Zahn has a chance to talk to the demon and asks how it turned the humans into monsters. The demon tells him to enter the tunnel behind him to find the truth. But at this moment, the chief arrives in a panic. He says no one is allowed to enter, but as he runs, he slips on a branch, causing him to drop a vial, spilling out his elixir. Zahn picks up the strange pill and sniffs it. He quickly realizes what it is, and he rushes into the tunnel, finding the Kirin's son and sees it chained up in a cage. It was being used as the source of the elixir, and Zahn is enraged at the sight. He rescues the Kirin, and as he carries it away, the peacock vows that the demon world will be coming to take the Kirin, and that the humans will atone for their sins. Sue is speechless, and Zahn walks right past her. The next day, Sue is with her father as he awakens, and she asks why they were attacked by demons. He reveals to her that 3 years ago, there was a devastating plague that struck their village. More than half the villagers were infected and they were unable to find a cure. But one day, the Kirin appeared and one of its scales fell into the well. After drinking the water, the villagers were completely healed, so they ended up capturing the Kirin and making their elixir from its scales. The first and second elders return to the village, and the chief is shocked to see their faces. It seems prolonged use of the elixir has changed them, and the first elder wants to get the Kirin back. Sue wants to learn more, so she volunteers to help, saying she is acquainted with Zahn, so the first elder decides to send his associate Chi with her, and says he will catch up once he has gotten adjusted to his body. Deep within the Fog Hill, we see that the primal demons, Asmodeus, the beast of insanity, and the beast of greed are sealed away. They receive a report about the peacock's death, but Asmodeus thinks Zahn must be weak after the fight, and he thinks this is their chance to capture the Kirin, so he orders his 3 demon generals to go after Zahn. The smaller demon Mara suggests working together, but the other demon Sancho isn't interested, so they head off separately. The lesser demons scatter as the flame axis Jin appears. He is joined by the other elemental axis because they felt a disturbance with the seal. They notice that the peacock demon is missing, and the metal axis gets closer to examine the barrier. He thinks that 3 years ago, when Zahn was critically injured, the fire seal must have weakened, and he finds a hole in the barrier. The other axis wonder how the peacock managed to escape, and the metal axis notes that the peacock had the power to split his body, so he must have used that power to escape through the hole. A bird arrives at their location, informing them that the peacock was already defeated. They are shocked to learn about this, but they know that only Zahn could have done this. The metal axis tells Jin to repair the fire seal, and he tells the rest of them to return to their posts. Meanwhile, we see Zahn, together with his duck companion Sui. They head into the Fog Hill with the Kirin, and Zahn hopes he can save his mother and his friend. He looks out in the distance, to where they need to go, but he suddenly feels an intense pain in his neck. We see Sue and Shi as they reach a lake in the Fog Hill. She tells Sue to be on alert, because they could come across demons at any time. She uses her powers, and she is able to sense that the Kirin is somewhere nearby. Sue fills up her water bottle, but she sees a face and jumps back. 2 demons appear, and they start charging at Sue. But Chi jumps in the way, and she starts fighting against the 2 demons. She easily cuts through the crab, and she jumps on the other, finishing it off with a shot from her bow. Sue is relieved, but Chi tells her it's not over, as Mara suddenly appears. Chi tries to shoot him, but he blocks it with his water and he gets up close to her, fighting with his fan. He fires blades from his fan, and Chi is pushed back. She can tell he is tough, so she decides to work with Sue. They split up, and Sue shoots with her crossbow. They shoot Mara from all sides, and Chi charges in to stab him, but he ends up stopping it with his mouth. Mara charges up a lightning attack, shocking Chi, and it also spreads to Sue. Mara is about to finish them off, but Zahn suddenly punches him as he arrives, throwing Mara away. Mara gets back up, and he gets excited when he sees the Kirin. He rushes at Zahn, and the 2 exchange blows, but Zahn manages to grab onto him, delivering a barrage of attacks, and he even destroys Mara's fan. Mara recognizes him as the flame axis, but he thinks he has the advantage since he can manipulate water. He crashes into Zahn with his water, but Zahn activates his fire, creating a huge flame that instantly vaporizes all of the water, burning Mara, and he falls to the ground in his primitive form. Zahn prepares to finish him off, but he suddenly feels the pain in his neck. Mara takes this chance, and he suddenly swells up, as he prepares to self-destruct. He explodes in a huge burst of water, and everyone is swept away. Meanwhile, we see the fifth elder as the first and second elders treat his injuries. His wounds are too serious, so they decide to use the elixir to heal him, and we see demonic energy entering his body. When Zahn wakes up, he finds that Sui is gone, but he still has the Kirin. As he gets up, he suddenly notices Chi beside him. He sees a peculiar mark on her shoulder, but she suddenly wakes up, thinking he's a pervert, so she slaps him and jumps away. At that moment, another demon named Bao appears. It seems the demon has a grudge against Zahn, and he says he has trained for the last 10 years to get his revenge, but Zahn doesn't know who he is. The demon charges at him with his sword, and his orb splits up to attack Zahn. Zahn gets the upper hand, disarming the demon's sword, and he attacks with his fire, but Zahn recognizes the demon's old wound. His neck hurts, causing him to lose power, and the demon kicks him away. Zahn remembers who he is, and in a flashback, we see that 10 years ago, he was the guardian of the Fog Hill. Bao and his friend Wei are trying to escape, but Zahn says he will never let them leave and harm people. Wei is weak and on the verge of death, but Bao thinks it's because he hasn't had any human blood in a long time. Bao is desperate to save his friend, but Zahn easily knocks him back. Zahn prepares to finish him off, but Wei suddenly tries to save him, and he gets blown back instead. Bao becomes enraged, charging at Zahn, but he creates a flame sword and cuts off Bao's arm. Back in the present, Bao says they were only trying to survive. Zahn prepares to fight, but he can't use his power, and Bao blows him away, smashing him into a boulder. Bao notes how weak he is, saying that he's even weaker than he was 10 years ago, and he calls him a disappointment. Bao attacks with the spikes from his tail, but she suddenly defends him, blocking all of the spikes, but she drops the pouch of her elixir pills. She notices she was hit by one of the spikes, and she realizes she's been poisoned. Bao grabs her pouch. He instantly recognizes the Kirin's smell, so he quickly takes the pills. Zahn tries to use his divine power, but there seems to be a parasite in his neck that stops him. Bao prepares to finish him off, but he's suddenly hit by a green flame, and the flame axis Jin appears. Meanwhile, Su wakes up and she finds she is with Sui. Su reveals she lost her memories 3 years ago after getting sick, and she says she's looking for Zahn and the Kirin to get answers. Sui thinks she is weak, so he recommends that she get out of the Fog Hill while she still can, but Su wonders what a duck like him can do. However, Sui claims he is actually a powerful sage, but he is currently sealed. They decide to stick together, and Sui leads the way, tracking Zahn's scent. Jin approaches Zahn. He suddenly grabs him and he blames him for their mother's death. We learn they are brothers, and Zahn says that their mother is still alive, saying he is on his way to save them. He explains how he spent the last 3 years looking for the Kirin, and he is headed to the Aegis Tower where he can exchange the Kirin for their mother. Jin finds this hard to believe, and he punches Zahn in the face, but there are flame seeds that drop, and they cause Jin to think of their past. We see that in the Fire Clan, Zahn beats all the other boys, showing off his control of fire, and he passes his test with the top grade. He tells his mother about the result, and he enjoys a delicious meal. He suddenly asks her if there is a way for someone to improve their flame in a short time. His mother knows he is asking for his brother's sake, but she tells him there are no shortcuts. Zahn mentions the barren flame, which he heard could instantly boost a person's control over fire, but his mother suddenly reprimands him, saying it doesn't exist. She tells him that countless people died going into their clan's forbidden area, looking for the barren flame, but no one has ever found it, so she forbids him from going. Zahn goes to find his brother, who we see is training hard, but he struggles to control his fire. Zahn arrives, mentioning how he got first place in the test, but Jin isn't happy about it. Zahn tries to cheer him up, telling him he'll be able to pass on the next test, but Jin doesn't want to hear it from him, calling him a genius who has it easy, while no matter how hard he trains, he still can't control his fire. Jin runs off saying he hates him, and Zon sees that his brother trained to the point where his hands were bleeding. Zon sneaks into their clan's forbidden area, but he slips and starts falling down the mountain. He narrowly avoids a spike, and magma bursts out at him, but he manages to dodge it all and make his landing. He becomes shocked when he notices a number of skeletons, and he thinks that these must be the other people who came looking for the barren flame. He looks around for a few hours, but the extreme heat takes its toll on him. He thinks he's going to die, but he suddenly hears a voice. He is caught by a flame whip, and it starts to burn his arm. A flame demon emerges, holding seeds of the barren flame. The demon wonders, out of all the people who have come looking, why a kid like him would think he would be able to obtain the barren flame. The demon can sense his potential, and wonders why he's trying to take this shortcut, but Zon claims it's for his brother. The demon drops the flame seeds into the lava to taunt him, but Zon thinks about how his brother has struggled, and he bursts with divine energy. He gets free, and he plunges his hand into the lava to save the seed. The demon is shocked, and Zon suddenly smashes him, grabbing him by the neck. The demon recognizes his power, and he ends up submitting to him, revealing his mission was to await the true heir of the Fire Clan, swearing to serve Zon, and he attaches himself to his body. The barren flame is revealed, and the demon tells him he needs to refine it into seeds to use their power. Meanwhile, we see Jin training, but he still has trouble controlling his flame. Zon suddenly appears, and he forces one of the seeds down Jin's throat. Jin wonders what's going on, and Zon tells him he will have a breakthrough soon. Soon after, we see Jin as he passes the next test. The elders announce the people who have made it to the next round, but Jin notices that Zon's name wasn't called. He wonders what's going on, but the chief says that Zon's hand is too injured, so he's unable to continue. Jin rushes home, where he finds Zon refining more seeds for him. Jin feels bad that his brother lost his spot because of him, but Zon is just happy for him. Thinking about all the things Zon did for him, Jin starts to believe him, but Belle interrupts, and Mara also reappears. Jin transforms, charging at the two demons, and he exchanges blows with them. Mara crashes into him, and he gets shocked by his lightning, but Zon jumps down, and he beats Mara up. However, Zon is still injured. Jin fights against Belle, countering his orbs with his flame. Belle prepares a huge attack, and Jin responds by charging up his flame. The two attacks collide, and Belle starts to get overpowered, but he splits his orb up to launch another attack. Jin creates a ring of fire, protecting himself from the orbs, and he throws the ring at Belle, which incinerates him, causing him to fall. Jin catches his breath, but Mara suddenly captures him, shocking him with his lightning. Zon isn't able to do anything, but Mara is suddenly frozen, as Shen makes his appearance, rescuing Jin. Mara tries to run, but he gets cornered by ice, and Shen ends up catching him. He prepares to blow himself up again, but Shen activates his power, completely freezing Mara and shattering him into pieces. Belle gets back up, cursing at them for keeping the demon sealed. Shen prepares to finish him off, but Zon decides to let him go. As Belle stumbles away, Shen approaches Zon, slapping him in the face. Shen still has a grudge for what happened 3 years ago, and he reminds him of how he failed to protect his sister, as well as his own mother. Jin wants to know what really happened, and in a flashback, we meet Shen's sister Lin. We learn she is being sent to the Fire Clan to help Zon control his power. Shen worries for her, but she tells him it'll be okay, saying it's not a dangerous mission. We see her training with Zon, while his mother watches on. Zon decides to get serious, but Lin is able to stop his attacks with her water. However, when her water gets absorbed by his body, it makes his power go wild. Lin gets blown away, and Zon charges at her, but his mother manages to block his attack, absorbing his flames into her own body. His mother ends up passing out, but we learn that the flames in her body can't be removed, and it's too much for her, so she doesn't have much time left. But Zon remembers the legend of the Kirin. Jin realizes he went to the Aegis Tower to save their mother, but Shen notes that because of his selfish actions, he jeopardized the 1,000-year-long peace against the demons. Shen notices the Kirin, and he decides to take it away, telling Zon he has become too weak to finish the job, but Zon insists on correcting his own mistake, begging Shen to give him a chance, but Shen just walks away. Zon suddenly unleashes his divine power, rushing at Shen and attacking with a barrage of fire. Shen transforms, barely stopping his attack, and the two are blown back. Shen is shocked that he still has so much power, and he thinks he needs to go back and maintain the water barrier, so he hands the Kirin back to Zahn, but warns him that if he fails to save Lin, he will kill him himself. The two brothers turn to Qi, and they recognize she is from the Wood Clan. Zahn notices she is paralyzed after being hit by Bao's attack, so he decides to take her with them. Meanwhile at the village, we see repairs are underway, and a group of villagers approach the chief, asking about the condition of their family members that they brought in for treatment after the demon attack. But the chief assures them all that everyone is fine, and that they are just being treated outside of the village. However, in reality, they are all being kept in the dungeon, and they are being used as test subjects to study the limitations of the elixir. Meanwhile, we see the fifth elder has recovered, and thanks to the elixir's power, he has even experienced an increase in his strength. He is approached by Quen, who asks to become his disciple. The fifth elder questions his motives, and Quen says he was powerless during the demon attack, so he wants to learn how to fight, so he can avenge his brother and protect the village. The fifth elder decides to accept him, but as they walk, Quen mentions the rumors going around the town that it was the elixir that caused the villagers to turn into demons during the last attack. But he thinks that would be impossible, because Su also took the elixir for her illness, but she didn't transform. He wonders if there might be two different elixirs, but the fifth elder suddenly attacks him, pinning him against a wall. Quen doesn't know what's going on, and the fifth elder starts to get taken over by his demonic energy, delivering a devastating punch. He narrowly misses Quen, but warns him to never mention the elixir again. Meanwhile, we see Su and Sui are lost and exhausted. Sui comes up with a plan, revealing special herbs he has collected, and he notes they are the Kirin's favorite food, so he plans to use it to lure the Kirin in rather than looking for it. They cook up the herbs, and Sui makes 3 different vials. Su wonders why there are 3, and Sui mentions that in the ancient books he has read, there are 3 distinct smells the herb can have. Sui unleashes the first vial, but it turns out to be disgusting, causing them to vomit. They find a new location, and Sui unleashes the second vial. It's surprisingly fragrant, and a flower approaches from the water. As Sui inspects it, a monster suddenly appears, and the two run away. They are about to be eaten, but Sui uses the first vial again, taking it out in a single hit. Su is exhausted, but Sui is confident that the third vial will be the one to succeed. He unleashes the vial, but nothing seems to happen. However, at that moment, there is suddenly a noise from a bush, and the two get excited. They quickly sneak up on the creature, grabbing its tail, but it turns out it isn't the Kirin. Meanwhile, Qi wakes up, and finds her wounds have been patched up. She sees the Kirin sleeping in front of her, and she thinks about taking it, but realizes she wouldn't be able to get away in her condition. Zahn enters the room, glad that she's okay, and he asks her to give him a hand. She helps put medicine on his back, but she notices he's been infected by a parasite. She notes that the parasite will inhibit his abilities and cause him unbearable pain if he tries to use it. Zahn wonders if she has a way to cure him, but she claims she isn't strong enough. However, she gives him medicine to help suppress it for the time being. Zahn thinks it must have been the peacock demon who planted the parasite in his body, but he is determined to continue on with his mission. Jin decides to go with him, but Zahn tells him he needs to watch over his barrier. Jin insists he's also responsible for saving their mother, and Zahn ends up agreeing to let him come along. Meanwhile, we see the second elder in the fog hill, looking for the Kirin. He suddenly notices something, and we see Su has been captured by a strange stone monster. The second elder decides to save her, turning yellow, and jumping down to them. He instantly smashes the cage, grabbing Su as he turns purple and runs away, but his path is suddenly blocked, and the creature surrounds them on all sides. The second elder turns yellow again, smashing one of the walls, but it instantly regenerates, telling him it's useless. The creature can tell that his yellow form boosts his power, while his purple form boosts his speed. The second elder thinks he needs to signal his brother for help, and he tells Su to grab his flare from his belt, telling her to throw it when he creates an opportunity. The second elder goes wild, smashing the walls, and causing as much damage as he can. Su gets the chance, and she manages to get the flare through. The creature realizes they are calling for backup, so it decides to quickly end things, as it restrains the two of them. but the first elder and his associate Kong arrive. The creature seems to get scared sensing them, but it's actually Sancho who they are afraid of. The first elder and Kong are blown to the side, and Sancho starts charging at the stone creature. The creature transforms into a giant turtle, catching Sancho's attack and surrounding him with stone. They attack using stone spikes, but it's not enough to penetrate Sancho's skin. Sancho breaks free, but the turtle unleashes another technique, attempting to seal him, but Sancho suddenly shoots out a strange goo, smashing the pillars, and it seems to reduce the speed of their regeneration. Sancho covers the turtle with his goo, and he smashes it with a single punch. Sancho grabs the second elder, and he takes his pouch of elixirs, but a blade suddenly flies past, and we see the first elder is back up. Kong smashes Sancho, pushing him back, and we see Kong's body is as hard as iron. The first elder tells Sue to get away with the second elder, and he starts to engage Sancho in combat. His weapon gets knocked out of his hands, but he is able to control it using his mind. Kong joins in, exchanging blows with Sancho, but even his iron body isn't enough as Sancho starts pummeling him. Kong manages to restrain Sancho with a number of chains, and the first elder lands an attack on him, but Sancho breaks free, and he shoots out a red goo that dissolves the first elder's blade. The fight continues on, but Sancho starts to overwhelm the duo, and he has even taken the first elder's arm. Sancho is about to finish them off, but he suddenly gets hit by an arrow as Chi appears, and he is then caught by Zon's flame whips. Chi checks up on the first elder, and he tells her to grab the Kirin when she sees the chance. Sui is reunited with Zon, and he warns Zon to be careful fighting Sancho. Sancho recognizes Zon as the one who defeated the peacock demon, so he consumes the elixir he took from the second elder, and he suddenly undergoes a transformation, gaining a new form. Zon and Jin start fighting against him, but Sancho is able to stop Jin's attacks. Zon manages to restrain Sancho once again, and Jin blasts him with a ring of fire, but Sancho manages to get free, smashing Jin away. Zon is left to fight against him, but Zon quickly starts to get overwhelmed, getting pummeled into a wall. Sancho smashes right through, but Zon suddenly creates his flame swords, stabbing Sancho in the chest, but he ends up getting smashed into the ground. Jin returns, and the brothers combine their attacks against Sancho, but it's not enough, and Jin gets blown away and pinned down. Sancho unleashes his power, preparing to finish him off, but Zon defends his brother, cutting through Sancho's attack, but he ends up getting stabbed. Zon suddenly feels pain from the parasite, and Sancho is disappointed this is all he can do. She wants to help Zon, but the first elder reminds her that her priority is the Kirin. Sancho prepares to finish Zon off, but he suddenly frees his brother, who blows Sancho away, and Zon quickly closes his wound. However, Sancho comes right back, smashing Jin, but this causes Zon to lose it, activating his divine powers, and he even removes the parasite from his body. In an instant, Zon lands multiple strikes, and he blows half of Sancho's body away. Sancho tries to retaliate, but Zon blocks everything, and he launches a final flame strike, which completely incinerates Sancho, as well as everything around him. Everyone is shocked at the display of power, but Zon collapses, completely exhausted. It seems Jin is also okay, but he is suddenly taken hostage by the first elder. The first elder demands for the Kirin, and Zon has no choice but to agree. She prepares to grab the Kirin, and Zon realizes she was after it the whole time. She manages to grab the Kirin, but the area starts to collapse. Zon wonders why a person from the Wood Clan is breaking the peace, and she has doubts about what she's doing, but the first elder reminds her that she needs the elixir to improve her wood abilities, saying she will go back to being a nobody without it. She can't go through with it, and the area around them starts to crumble. The first elder throws Jin away, but he starts to fall off the cliff. Zon has no energy to get to him, but he manages to catch him with his whip. Zon is about to slide off as well, but Sui tries to pull him back. She quickly helps pull Jin back up, but as she does, Zon falls down instead, but he is just glad he saved his brother. The first elder suddenly returns, stabbing Chi from behind, and he runs off with the Kirin. Meanwhile, deep in the fog hill, the fire seal becomes weakened, and Asmodeus recognizes it's their chance to get free. He unleashes his power, shattering the 5 elemental seal, and he is finally free after 1,000 years. The other demons cheer for them, and Asmodeus declares that it's time to take back the world from the humans. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.